Okay.
Boo! No, we love you.
They had me taking a picture.
How horrible!
You know, we were sitting down, but then we
Then
realized
they can't see
look how
us.
people
Yeah.
can't see us. So
We've been sitting on our butts all day anyway.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
stand. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me introduce you guys.
Okay.
And you can get a proper welcome.
Let's sit down first.
Oh yeah.
And then we can
Oh,
stand.
okay.
A traumatized TV reporter who uncovers a werewolf cult and shares her vengeance. A psychiatrist who sheds her earthly bonds of sanity and reason while exploring the outer reaches of reality. A nihilistic, death-obsessed punk rocker with a bump and grind that literally raises the dead. These are the iconic roles that the women before you have played. You've grown up with them. We've loved them for years. Please welcome Dee Wallace, Barbara Crampton, and Linnea Quigley.
Well, thank you. And which one is which? Okay, Dee's the werewolf, right? You're the psychiatrist, and I'm the bump and grind girl.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of those roles.
Oh, I've seen you bump and grind.
I can bump and grind, but I don't get a
can
lot of
bump
those
and
roles.
You're like the mom. You're like the nice lady.
But you should see her dance. Oh my God, it's nasty. You dance good though.
Thank you.
I guess my first question for you guys. This is weird because I can't see you all.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm grotesquely tall.
No, I wish I was that tall.
Basically, I think a lot of people, when they hear about the roles you guys started with, because you guys started in horror pretty early in your careers, I think a lot of people think, well, you must have been horror fans to begin with to be attracted to these roles. But in reality, quite often it's a job that you took because you needed to have a job. I'm wondering, we all need jobs. I'm wondering if you could kind of take us back, each of you, to the first horror film role that you took and where you were in your life at that time.
Okay. Well, so the very first role in film that I ever did was a religious film called All the King's Horses, and then I segged right into The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh.
Which kind of sums up who I am. And it was at the beginning of my career, and, you know, I get these questions like, wow, did you know it was going to be it was a freaking job, right?
Yeah.
When you're that young and you're starting out, you just want to work. And it was a lot of the emotional stuff that I love to do, and very early on in my career. And I didn't actually go from horror to horror to horror like a lot of people think. I did 10 with Blake Edwards and Bo Derek, and a lot of movies of the week in between, and then went into The Howling, and then went back into the family film with E.T., and then Cujo, and then after that the horror genre kind of took me over. But for me, there's nothing better than the horror genre. I love to do big emotional work, and I love to play big arcs, and I don't think there's a better fan in the world than the horror fan.
Yay!
Well, I went to school for theater, and I moved to New York City, and I thought I was going to do theater and that was going to be my life. But somehow I found myself moving to Los Angeles, and really I was just a fan of movies. I didn't think that I was going to end up a horror actress. I just wanted to act. I loved acting. When I was younger, I used to watch The $1 Million Movie. Every day after school, I would come home, and on Channel 11, there was always a movie with Miriam Hopkins or Bette Davis. And I grew up watching those ladies, and those were the people that I feel were the ones that I wanted to model after myself. And you talk about wanting to do the big emotional work and all that. I love that kind of stuff too, just emoting. And I guess the first, I did some work on some soap operas, and then my first job, I think, was a very small part in Body Double. Originally, I'd had 3 scenes in the movie, and then the night before I was to shoot, they cut out the 2 really good acting scenes with all the dialogue.
I hate that.
So yeah. So anyway, I did a small part in that, and then I believe I did Re-Animator before I did Chopping Mall. So Re-Animator was my first real horror movie, and the girl who originally had the part before me, because they had another casting, I hadn't auditioned for it, was going to do the role, but then her mother read the script.
Oh no!
And she said, no, you're not doing that movie. So they had another casting call, and Jeffrey and Bruce had already had the roles, and they were just reading with different girls, and I didn't know that. I didn't know they didn't have the job. So I came in and I read with them, and I was thinking to myself, geez, they're so good for these parts. I hope they get the parts, these guys. Anyway, little did I know they were all auditioning me. So we had nice chemistry together, and I got that job, and I loved the script. I thought the script was cool, and I didn't know that was going to be the beginning of my career in horror, but
here we are.
But here we are.
Yes.
Here
Yes.
you are. Yeah.
Thank goodness that girl's mother did that.
I know.
That's scary.
Yeah, what would
Mothers.
I know. We don't know what would happen.
happen? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I didn't even realize the effect of horror movies as much as when I left the business for a few years, and I had my kids, and I just really wasn't working. And then I came back and did You're Next, and all of a sudden I realized I wasn't on social media. There was Facebook, and there was Twitter and Instagram, and then I started going to more conventions, and then I really realized the community of the people that I was with and a part of, and I gained an appreciation for the genre. I'd say really about 12 or 13 years ago, I think. Wow. Yeah, because of my, renewed appreciation and working on that movie You're Next. So anyway, thanks you guys for being here.
Yay! Oh no, I have to answer after all that. Okay. I always loved horror. I watched it with my girlfriend. We'd play act all the movies and that on Saturday nights. So it was kind of easy. I wanted to get in horror, even though it just kind of happened. Also, they were doing a lot of horror films in the 80s. And then I seemed like the kind of girl that, is the nice girl, and she's going to get killed. And I never, was the final girl back then. So I started in a horrible, horrible film called Don't Go Near the Park, which Elvira aired, unfortunately. And then I did. I know, it was horrible.
They haunt us.
Don't you know that?
Yes.
And so then I did Graduation Day, and I got that part because I'd gone in for the audition, and it was similar to Barbara's. I didn't get it, and some other girl did, and then I got a call after they started filming, oh, would you like to be in it? Because I found out the other girl would not show any breasts. And I said, I don't have a problem. I just wanted to work. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So that's how I got that one. And then it was on to Silent Night, Deadly Night, and a bunch of other ones you might not hear of, and Return of the Living Dead, and more and more and more. And I just did The Barn 2, which is horror, and The Good Things Evil Does, or something like that. No, The Good Things Devils Do. And so I'm still working in it, and I love it. I love horror and the people, as Dee does too. I think it's a great, great genre.
My next question, and you don't feel free to answer all in sequence, if there's stuff that you, because I know you guys
Interject
have
or something.
interject,
Okay,
or if you have overlap. But I guess my question is for Dee specifically. You talked about how you really enjoy emotional, challenging roles.
What? Sorry. I do comedy too.
Really?
Sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to talk to you about Cujo, because whenever people say to me that, horror movie roles for women, in the 80s were superficial and lacking in depth, and, I think about Cujo and I'm like, that is the most intense performance I think I've seen, in a really long time, and I rewatched it and it still has all of that power.
Thank you.
And it's amazing. And I just wonder, could you tell me what it was like sort of emotionally going to that place? Because you filmed it before you were a mom, is that correct?
Uh-huh.
So that's amazing.
Well, but I had a mom.
But you had a mom. Yeah.
I had a good model
Yeah.
to follow. Well, Cujo was the hardest thing I've ever done, bar none. But I would take issue with that. I think the roles in the 80s were offered women the most opportunity to eat the scenery.
But people complained about, they said women aren't strong in these films.
Well, we were strong. We were just strong as victims.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. But, we were more victims back in the 80s.
Societal.
We were.
Yeah.
And all the movies of the week and everything I did were all about battered wives, and wives of alcoholics. And so we had a lot of opportunity to explore a lot of really serious issues, but we did it as victims. Mm-hmm. Now all the women's roles on TV are cops, if you've noticed.
That's true.
And that's great, but they aren't allowed to play the emotional life that we had in those roles back in the 80s, I feel.
I think so too.
Cujo's my favorite film, hardest thing I've ever done.
It's my favorite film of yours too, Dee. I've told you
Thank
that
you.
before. I love you
Thank
in that
you.
movie so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was the worst part about it?
The fucking car.
Just being in the car. It must have been hot in that car.
Dear God, no, we were freezing in the car.
Oh, you were free? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were shooting in Northern California in November.
Oh.
And it was really cold, so I looked over during one scene and Danny is going, and so I went to Louis, I said, isn't there any way we can rig a heater in the front of the car? So finally they did. Yeah. The dogs, I want you to know, were much more better taken care of than I was.
Oh no.
There were 13 real dogs that played Cujo. They were all trained to go after toys. So on action, the trainer would go, dig for your toy, and the dogs would go, right? But we had to tie their tails down because it was all a big game for them. So the dogs were so well taken care of that the trainer even slept in the barn with them.
Oh.
There were 13 dogs, 1D. And, but, I'm so incredibly proud of my work in that film. I feel like I went probably as far as I could ever go. Hopefully as truthfully as I could do that, because that's my job for you guys, is to be truthful. And it's really challenging in horror films not to want to act, to be real and go, really, really, what would I do in this moment looking at a werewolf, right? So thank you for bringing that film up, because
Yeah, it's a great one.
thank you.
Yay!
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about people being victims in the 80s. I guess we were, a lot of slasher movies and people being the final girl and whatever, or not being the final girl and getting killed. But I felt like one of my best roles that I've ever had was in From Beyond, and that was 1986, and I played a psychiatrist who, is finding her inner self in a lot of ways and becomes a very strong heroine and then kind of goes crazy. So I had a lot to play in the span of one movie, but I will say something that I think about 80s horror movies and sometimes movies in general. And especially in the 80s, like when you think about Linda Hamilton in The Terminator or Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, those women were strong, right? But they represented as male. They didn't really represent as female so much. So I felt like when I did From Beyond, I noticed that I was really a woman in that movie. So for me, I felt like it was kind of groundbreaking at that time. And what's interesting today, because of the Me Too movement and, people really digging in and saying, look, women, we think we're equal, but we're really not. Look where we're not equal in pay and, equal in politics and a lot of other areas.
Thank you. In our country, I don't want to be equal in politics right now.
No, that's right.
Well, we don't have to talk about politics, but it'd be, nice if, maybe there was a woman that could eventually get elected president. I don't know what your politics are, but
I'd vote for
what
that.
I'm saying. But what I've noticed lately is that, like when I hear about the development that people are going through with scripts and in Hollywood and making movies, that people are talking about they really want women to be strong in something and then be even stronger. So it's kind of in right now in our society, to look at women as being strong and capable, and that is being reflected into what kinds of movies Hollywood is making right now, and TV shows, maybe as cops and whatever else. But I do think there's a little bit of a shift, which is nice for us.
Yeah. I'm open.
Yeah.
Along those lines a little bit, you've all worked with, I think, pretty high-profile male directors who have had a lot of big reputations and, I imagine, very big personalities and, being difficult and all that kind of thing. I'm wondering if you could each share with me a time when you were asked to do something in a film and you were like, I'm absolutely not going to do that. It conflicts with either my values or my comfort level, and I know all three of you have had those situations for sure.
Okay, when I worked on Savage Straits with Linda Blair, the director was wanting me to overdo the rape scene and have mucus in my nose and blood running down my leg, and I just went, no. I go, this is brutal enough, we don't need that. And it would have been way too much. And then you've got the certain directors that want you to do something that goes against your character that you feel. And so a lot of times I'll say, no, I don't think that would happen. This is how I feel about it. So there have been some things I just said, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And it ended up fine. It didn't hurt the film at all. So.
Go ahead.
I think that it's interesting working with different directors and different personalities, and no director is the same. So some directors give you a lot of direction, and they could kind of play any part. Stuart Gordon was a little bit like that. And then you get other directors where they don't really say too much to you, and you're wondering if you're doing a good job. So it's interesting. Then you get the ones that are really collaborative and talk to you about the part and ask you if you would like to change any of your lines or do anything different. And that was Adam Wingard on Your Next. He was basically, would kind of talk us through the scene and then say, if you guys want to change anything or offer anything or do anything different, you're welcome to. So I think you just kind of have to go with the flow of whoever you're working with, because you want to be in their movie. And whatever kind of movie they want to make, they're the captain of the ship and you have to go with it. I don't feel like I felt pressured by anybody ever to do anything I didn't want to do, which maybe I'm just lucky. That never happened to me. I will say, though, that the first woman director I ever worked for was Axel Carolyn in Tales of Halloween. And that was only a few years ago. And I've been doing acting for 35 years or more. And so that was a little sad, but, a breakthrough. So that was good. And then recently I worked for a gal named Gigi Sol Guerrero. You'll be hearing more about her. She directed me in a Hulu Into the Dark movie. And she was amazing. And I would like to be directed by more women. And hopefully we'll see that coming into play.
Oh, I thought of one. When I first started, I was like really first starting. There was a director where we had to go up in this helicopter, and a bunch of times it was very, 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 very low budget. And they almost went into power lines and everything. So we land at the Burbank Airport in California, and he wanted me to strip naked and run with an AR-1 across the runway of where the private jets come in. I'm like, no way. I do not want to be shot, and I do not want to be naked running around in this airport. They would be all over me, and it would be done. I'd be in jail. But he was like, and then I had to chase him for money. But I didn't do the part running with a huge semi-automatic machine gun,
Wow. Oh. I don't know if I can follow that one.
That was a weird one. That was weird.
I've been very extremely lucky, I think. Sorry. To work with producers who really. I never talk about it from the point of view of Dee. I only talk about it from the point of view of the character and what she's feeling and why she would or wouldn't do something. The one time that really stands out for me was when I was doing E.T., and there's a scene where Mary's asleep in bed and E.T. comes in and puts some Reese's Pieces on her nightstand, and Stephen wanted me to have the towel down past my hips, the blanket. And Mary felt incredibly wrong about that this was a gentle, heart-driven family film, and that wasn't conducive to what we were trying to tell in the story. And I remember Melissa Matheson, the writer, and Kathy Kennedy, his producer, came in and we all talked about it, and it was interesting. All the women agreed with me, and Stephen, to his benefit, listened, and so we ended up with the blanket up here. But I have to say, I can't really remember a director that insists pushing me into a place that I feel is really wrong. Not that I'm not willing to go to just about any place that the character needs to go to, but I also kind of have a different perspective, that if I feel that it's strongly against what my character would or should do, or it greatly offends me, that you as the audience don't look at the screen and go, well, the director made her do it. You look at the screen and go, why the fuck did Dee Wallace do that?
Yeah.
So I always speak up when it's that strong instinct within me to honor the integrity of what I'm doing.
Yay. That could have been a really interesting question, because maybe some people have had directors say, oh, you're going to sleep with me? Or something like that, and you say no too.
Post-Weinstein.
Yes,
You
post-Weinstein.
Now, in 45 years, never had it happen.
No, me
Neither.
either.
So glad.
I haven't
Never.
either.
No.
I would have punched him.
Yay! Or set Cujo afterwards.
I would have brought Christopher Stone to the set and let him
Oh,
settle
yeah.
it.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, he would have.
Oh, man.
You fuck with my wife.
I wanted to, I think we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll open it up to the audience because I'm sure they've got a lot of burning questions for you guys. So I wanted to just touch on the Scream Queen label, and I know you guys all probably get asked about this a lot, and I noticed the title of this panel says you guys are Scream Queens on the panel. Barbara wrote an excellent piece for Birth Movies Death, I think a few years
Yeah,
ago.
and you both commented as well. I
And
got
you both
comments from
commented.
you
Oh, yeah,
about,
right.
remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just about how you felt the label was very
Yeah.
reductive, and
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, actors have spoken out about this before, but that was the first time I'd seen it so clearly articulated with evidence, and not that you need to have evidence, but you laid it out so clearly. And I'm just wondering, a few years later, it feels to me like there's almost a reclamation of that term. Like you have that show Scream Queens, you know, and
Oh, that's a marketing tool.
it
You
is
know.
very much
Yeah.
so. And I noticed when Jamie Lee Curtis came back with the new Halloween last year, she was referred to as a Scream Queen, but it was very reverent. It was very like, this is like a, we're so glad
Yeah,
she's back.
I think
kind of
when
thing.
you guys use it,
Yeah.
you use it with honor, don't you?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never, and I wrote about that in the article too. If you want to read that article, just Google Barbara Crampton. Don't call me a Scream Queen, and that's the name of the article. But
Yeah.
I know that it is said with reverence and respect and honor, but I just, there's no equivalent for a male terminology for that, and I just felt like it potentially didn't really exemplify what women in the genre do, and the places, the deep places that we go, and the deep work that we do. 10 minutes. And so I just thought it was an opportunity to just look at that term and break it down and see where you're at with it. But when I talked to different people about it, some people were, even actresses, even you, I remember, said, I don't mind if people call me that. You know, I take that, and I know it's said with respect and honor to me. So, but to me, it just feels like something that is reductive and doesn't really exemplify what women do.
Well, and
today.
I think we don't want to be limited.
Yeah,
by
it feels like limiting.
You know,
too,
there's
yeah.
a part of my career that's definitely Scream Queen, and there's a lot of other pockets that aren't. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of wind things up. With regards to the way horror has evolved now, you have all had kind of, I mean, Linnea, you are so prolific. I think I looked at your IMDb and you have like 8 movies in development right now,
God,
for sure. And Barbara and Dee, you've had so much resurgence over the past few years, and it's been so nice seeing directors like Rob Zombie and Adam Wingard, you know, acknowledging that and making roles for you. And they're great roles, and they're so satisfying to see, and the audience service and satisfaction. Seeing you guys doing that is tremendous. And I'm just wondering, do you like the way horror is going now from your vantage point with, you know, the revival, bringing people back from the 80s, 70s, and 80s, but also forging new ground with Gigi Salguero? And Barbara, I know you've really praised the movie Raw in the past. Like, you know, there's like, and Jennifer Kent, like there's just such an upswing of really powerful female directors that are finally starting to come up. It's kind of a really interesting time. How do you guys feel about what you're seeing from your vantage point?
Well, I know for me, I feel like I'm getting some of the best roles of my career lately. From You're Next to We Are Still Here to Beyond the Gates, playing like a hostess of a video game, and We Are Still Here, I played a mom who had lost her son in an auto accident and then had to deal with the aftermath of that, and potentially maybe being haunted by her son or not by her son, wishing that it was her son and ultimately it really wasn't. I mean, those kinds of roles have really given me something to really stretch myself for, other than the roles I had in probably the beginning of my career. Jeffrey Combs refers to me in Re-Animator as that bubble-headed co-ed. Of course, I didn't play it like that, but it was kind of written that way. Anyway, I just feel, I feel really satisfied about the work that I'm getting now in a way that I never did when I was younger. So for me, I think things are good, and I really like seeing more women out there being championed and celebrated, and more. I think we need more women directors. But thanks for pointing those women out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just like to say I'm really happy and excited about The Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Don't Look Now, some of the new horror stuff that's coming out, because finally some major players are coming in and people are starting to look at the horror genre as more mainstream, maybe even Oscar-worthy contenders. And it's long overdue.
That's
And
well
we
said,
only
yeah.
have now 8 minutes, so let's take some questions. Eh?
Okay, yes, yes.
Oh, yeah,
Let's take
two questions.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'm interested that women are getting into it more, and even with documentaries. I'm doing a documentary. You know, it's like not really directing, but it, you know, it's like Penelope Spheres. She was like a groundbreaker with Decline of Western Civilization and things like that. So they're doing documentaries more. They're doing feature films. Artists that are coming out just that do artwork. It's really great to see these women taking it, you know, by the reins and going.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
This is for all three of you. At a point in your career, have you ever been genuinely scared on screen?
No.
No.
I've
That's
been
so funny.
scared because of like where you have to do things like fight scenes, or
Yeah.
like if they're saying, oh, get next to that river or that ledge or something like that. That scares me. But the monsters
Yeah.
don't.
No.
But on Return of the Living Dead, I did get like these horrible death calls and stuff like that, and that scared me.
What's like a
Like
crank, like a
yes,
caller?
like somebody would call and say, I'm going to call you, that old thing of, I'm going to call you 3 times, and the 3rd time you're going to be dead. And then, I mean, it was like a
God, it's
ringing
like
voice.
Fanboy 13 coming up.
I know! It was so scary. So I was scared on that. Like an offset, but it was scary.
Mostly making movies is fun, so.
Yeah, and technical.
Yeah, very
really
technical.
technical.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
This is for all three of you guys. So like when you have directors that are like more comedic, like Joe Dante and Adam Wingard and all that, then you have like more visceral directors like Rob Zombie and all those darker ones. What do you like more comedic horror or more like visceral stuff?
I like the more comedy because actually in horror there's a lot of comedy. You know, when people get really scared, they do like crazy things and they get nervous, they don't know where to go, and I like the comedy horror myself.
I don't think I like comedy. I think it's just about whatever the character's doing, you know. I mean, you know, when you study a part, I was taught when I was younger that, you know, you look for the comedy in every role, you look for the love. There's lots of different, you look for all aspects of the human condition in each character, and usually there's some elements of everything in every character. But I mean, comedy is fun to play, but it's all fun to play. It's all pretend and really satisfying to dig in deep. So I like it all.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that Joe Dante, he was responsible for getting a lot of comedy into The Howling and some of his other films, but he doesn't direct from the point of view, he's not funny when he directs. Mm-hmm. You know, he's clear and concise and easy, but not funny. And Rob, on the other hand, I wouldn't call him visceral. I would call him easy. He's open to everybody's ideas. And usually I drive home from a Rob Zombie set going, oh my God, I did not do that, did I? Because he gives you so much room, you know, to bring in your creative ideas.
That's great.
Any other cues?
There's a guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
in the back.
But are some times the characters really changed when you've got your hands on them and had a chance to play them?
What? I didn't hear.
Oh,
How's a character changed once you really get your hands and get into it, right?
Yeah.
well, I think it's all, for me, it's all in the writing of how it's written, and it just seems like the words just, for me, come out from how it's written. So I don't know what they had in mind, but I just make it mine by doing that.
I read a part and I read a whole script and I get a feeling or a sense of how I would play a particular character. But then through studying the part in whatever way I'm doing that, if I'm doing any research or I'm, just looking at the scene or I'm studying my lines even just on a technical standpoint, different things just come to me. And sometimes it changes a lot. Like I'll think that I'm going to play a scene a certain way, and then I'll change my mind many times before I get on set. And then sometimes on set, it's even different than you planned. So it just depends on, that's what's exciting, because acting is supposed to be in the moment. You're supposed to be real, as Dee's talking about. So, sometimes you never know what the final product is going to look like. Really, you have a sense,
Never
an
know.
idea, but it's usually different than when I first think about, I'm going to do it like this, and then I allow myself to make a lot of decisions and change my mind a lot. So I do.
I'll be quick because I see we're wrapping up.
She looks worried.
The whole method that I use is not to think about it or study it or figure anything out until I actually am in the moment on the set. Those of you that have seen 3 from Hell, there's a scene where I set up Sherry to get murdered by 3 other broads, and that doesn't happen. The tables get turned, and Rob called me, and I was getting ready to start NCIS, and I went in and I got into makeup, and I said, "Oh, what are we doing?" Literally, all I knew is that Rob needed me on the set. And they took me down to the set, and he said, "Well, we're going to do a continuation of this thing we did the other day," which he's famous for, by the way, bringing you back. And I said, "Okay, well, you come in and you react, and that's what we're doing. All right, let's go." And I said, "Rob, wait a minute. Just give me something, and so he started talking to me, and I went, all right, I got it. Just in that moment, I got how far out I could go in that moment, which he always gives you permission to do. And it's a crazy moment what happened to the character. Had I sat down and tried to figure that out, I would have never come up with it, ever. It's the same thing with penis breath. I would have never laughed at penis breath, because I would have thought she's a mom and she needs to be, But when you're in the moment, you're that character, and that character does all kinds of shit that you wouldn't do. And that's the fun of it for me.
I think we're going to wrap it up, but thank you so much.
Thank you.